This is the agenda for today. We'll start with the basics and see what AR is and what are the types of AR. Then we will continue with some examples on how can you create AR apps yourself, and we'll have that structured on different levels, you will see. Then we will continue with some real-world use cases on how can these apps be used for the better, not only to have fun and also to have fun. And finally, we will explore the next steps in this augmented reality world. A little bit about myself. I'm head of mobile development at Wolfpack Digital, and my background is mostly on native iOS, Android, on Flutter, and a bit of server-side Java from my early career. So let's see. If we would have studied augmented reality in school, we would have got a definition like this: an enhanced version of reality where views of the physical real world environments are augmented with superimposed computer-generated images over a user's view of the real world. And we, as good students, we would probably make this face because it's quite difficult, this definition. So let's simplify it a bit. So basically, augmented reality is adding virtual components to real-world views in order to enhance them in a fun or in a useful way. And since a picture is worth 1,000 words, here's an example. This is a picture taken by myself in 2018 when I first explored augmented reality on iOS. And you can see the background image with the real world and the virtual object that was added. So is it some kind of virtual reality? Well, not really, and let's see why. Virtual reality is actually an environment that's entirely virtual, while augmented reality is something virtual that's added on the natural environment. This is the big difference between them. All right, so how many types of augmented reality are there? They can be classified in two major types: based on markers and without markers. And this is because those virtual objects can be added at specific locations in the real world with those markers, or we can add them in other ways, which we'll see in a minute. Firstly, the one based on markers are, let's say, a bit more simple because you just place some kind of QR codes in the real world, and then the application generates virtual objects where those QR codes are located, and they can be animated. It's one of the first ways to create augmented reality apps, but it's kind of limited because you need to have those QR codes all over the place. So then we go to the markerless augmented reality applications, and we can have location-based apps where those 3D objects are placed at specific coordinates, or maybe where you detect some planes. Then we have projection-based augmented reality. This is when some virtual elements are projected on the real world, so not in a camera view like we saw before. Going next, we have overlay augmented reality. This is when extra information is added on the real world view, and a good example for this would be the head-up display technology that's present in many cars of today. And last but not least, superimposition. This is basically when real-world objects are augmented with specific elements to provide an alternate view of them. So maybe you want to duplicate some real-world objects and put them around in a different layout. So these are basically the types of augmented reality, and in hoping that this caught your attention, let's see how you can create them yourselves. And fortunately, it's not very difficult today to create this yourself, because both iOS and both Apple and Google provided native frameworks in order for you to use in your mobile applications to create such experiences. On the iOS side, we have AR Kit, which was launched in 2017, and it was updated every year. So right now it's at version number 5. And for it, you need to have at least iOS 11, an iPhone 6s for the first 2 versions, and an iPhone 10s for the 3rd version and above in order to use the new features. And of course, some knowledge about Xcode and Swift to build those iOS apps. Then on the Android side, it was released it's called AR Core. It was released in 2018, and the current version is 1.28, but this is a different versioning system compared to Apple. And the requirements are Android 7, you need to install Google Play services, and to have a phone that's at least as good as the Google Pixel or the Samsung Galaxy S8. And on the implementation side, you have to use Kotlin and Android Studio. Okay, since we don't have time to cover both of them, we will focus in the following examples on the iOS side with ARKit, and we'll start at level 1. So level 1 is basically surface detection and object placement from a mobile app. This was available from the first version of ARKit, and the steps are to basically detect a surface which is horizontal at first, load a 3D object that's created with any kind of 3D modeling software, and add it to the scene on the detected plane. And we can see on the right side a demo. That's the corner of my office, so you'll see this in a few demos today. The floor was detected, and I added here a custom object. I must say that this app, I started this app from an example that Apple provided with some objects like a lamp and a candle, but I also modified it to add custom objects like the wolf that we just saw. And as you can see, we can move them around the floor since the floor was detected, and see them in our camera view. All right, so this would be kind of the first example. How we can do this in code. Just a quick overview of the components, because yeah, we will not get into details, but it's important to see the big picture. So in order to create such an app, you need first a scene view, which will represent the entire screen, a session, which is the augmented reality session in which you can add objects, a configuration for that session. In our case, we can see in the code on the right side that you can put specific properties on this configuration, like the horizontal or vertical plane detection. The focus square, which detects, it shows you that it has detected a plane. And finally, you have nodes on the scene. You have a root node and then child nodes that you can add. And such a node is basically a 3D object. So the wolf and the candle that we added were nodes, as you can see in the last few lines of the code. So these are nodes that were added to the scene. Now, another example, again at level 1, would be image detection. Kind of similar to what we saw with marker-based augmented reality. So we load an image that we want to be used as a marker, and then a 3D object or an effect that we want to overlap on that image when it's detected. So if we look at the demo again, we have the same corner of the room. This image was used as a marker, and the fire effect was added on the image. And you can see I'm moving it around, and the fire moves with the image. Again, this was started from a demo project from Apple, but changing the images and the fire effects. So basically, if you want to try it, you can easily start it yourself and change things around. Similar to the previous example, we have the session, but what's different is that here we have a reference image that we need to load, the reference image that we saw with the wolf paw. The configuration, this time with different properties like detection images, and the scene delegate, which will be called when that image is detected, and it will load the 3D object, or it can do whatever logic we want, but in our case it loaded the fire and overlapped it with the image. All right, now after seeing this example, we can level up, and here at level 2 we have collaborative AR sessions. These were introduced in ARKit 2 in 2018, and What can you do with them? You can see the same augmented reality environment from multiple phones at the same time. You just need to connect them to the same network and put them together to sync, and you can see the same virtual objects no matter from what phone you place them. So if you look again at the demo, I will add a few objects from the left iPhone and then from the right one. They both appear, I mean, all the objects appear on both screens, and we can see the color difference between them. This is a great way to create games, multiplayer games that you can play with your friends, and the complexity, of course, can be much higher than this. What's different from level 1? It's this multi-peer session compared to the simple AR session that we had in the first two examples. This multi-peer session is a helper that Apple created, and it makes it easy for us to connect the phones and distribute their IDs and the objects. So we have handlers for each action: when someone joins the session, when someone leaves, when a new peer is discovered, and then we need to distribute the peer IDs and all the object information from a phone to another. But you can start from this, and the sky is the limit for what you can do. And a little enhancement to what we saw at level 1 with object placement on the floor. In ARKit 3 in 2019, Apple also introduced people occlusion, so you can hide the object if you try it, let's say, with your hand or with your body. We have here a vase on the floor, and I can hide it with my hand. And then if I tap on the screen, I will enable and disable this effect. So now it's disabled, now it's again enabled. And we'll see that if I try to hide the image with an object, with a phone, it doesn't work, because the first implementation was just for people, as we'll see in the code in a minute. So you place an object, and then you have to configure the session in such a way that the where is it on the code? Yeah, it's person segmentation with depth. That's a property on the configuration. And after you set that property, you can enable and disable it, and then people occlusion is turned on and off. What's different again from the level 1? Maybe you notice that it's a bit less code. And here we have an AR view at the top as a property, not a scene object, as we had there. And that's because in ARKit 3, Apple brought two big things. Reality Kit is the first one, which is a new framework created from scratch. Before that, we had Scene Kit, which also was used for gaming, and then merged with ARKit 1 and 2. But now Reality Kit is specially created for augmented reality, and it reduces the complexity of the implementation, so you can implement things easier on the AR side with this. As I said in the beginning, you need to test it on iPhone XS or above, on 11, on 12, and so on. So this was introduced in 2019, and it makes development easier. And then they also created an app called Reality Composer, which you can install on your iPhone, iPad, or Mac. And with it, you can easily create 3D objects. They also have a lot of templates there, and you can change the shapes and the colors of the objects. You can also export them and easily add them to your ARKit project. So it makes it easier for developers to create 3D objects, because we as developers, we kind of know how to implement the code, but it's difficult for us to create those 3D objects for our apps. And this Reality Composer really helps us. Okay, I skipped a slide, sorry. Just a quick code comparison between Reality Kit and Scene Kit, as I said above. This is the most extreme example, so it's not always that big of a difference, but just so you can imagine. And now, going to the third and final level, level 3, we can have right now with ARKit 4 and 5, we have face tracking in real time. So it's not about just placing objects around. We can track faces and not just recognize faces when they appear, but as we can see in the demo on the right side, here's also the orientation of my face is detected, and a mesh is applied on the face, and it's perfectly tracking my movement. Also the eyes and everything. So this is pretty accurate and can be used for a lot of filters and functionalities that you might want to add to your apps. On the code side, you need to use an AR face tracking configuration, and then you can load whatever transform you want, whatever effect you want on the face with this. And then in 2020, the LiDAR scanner appeared on the iPad Pro and the iPhone 12 Pro. And this LiDAR comes from light detection and ranging, and it makes it easier to map, to detect the environment around us and to create a mesh of it. So as we can see in the GIF, it uses laser beams, like eye-safe laser beams, to detect the environment. And a cool application of this, I have a demo from an app called 3D Scanner, which you can also download from the App Store. And if you look on the right side, in a matter of like 10 or 15 seconds, I just scanned this corner of a room with the furniture. And after again 30 seconds of processing, it created a map of that room, not only with the depth of the objects, but also with the color, which is pretty cool for mapping the environment around you and seeing it in 3D and maybe sharing it with someone else. So this is possible only on the devices with the LiDAR scanner. And another cool thing at this level, let's say, you don't need anymore to install a full app to benefit of the AR experiences. You can also use app clips. App clips are small portions of your app that are kind of used automatically without downloading the app from the App Store. So you scan an app clip code, which is similar to a QR code, and then a small portion of the app is used instantly, is downloaded, and then it's removed when you no longer need it. So this is also doable and applicable to augmented reality. Here we open just the camera view without having any app installed. We scan the clip on that package, and the AR objects appear right there. Okay. So another thing that makes developers' life easier that was added recently in 2021 actually is Reality Kit 2, which makes creating 3D objects even easier. You can install, you can use the depth API, the object depth API, something like that, and take photos of the objects of the real world that you want to have in 3D, and then the software creates a 3D object based on your 2D images, which makes it even more easier for us to create 3D objects for what we want to do in our apps. So this was basically the demo and the explanation of how can you create your apps. So if we look now at some real world use, how can we use these apps day by day? One of the fields would be the education, to make it interesting for children to learn and to create such augmented reality experiences when they scan their books or when they have certain notes that they might learn from. The AR apps can also be used in retail and in, let's say, interior design, if you want to see how specific objects would look in your home, or to change their color and things like that. Then a big field in which they are used is glam tech. With this you can try certain makeups or lipstick, or you can change the color of your hair and basically have a virtual try-on for some kind of makeup to see how you would look like without actually doing it in real life. And it's also safer in this pandemic time, so you don't have to always go to someone to do your makeup. Then in navigation and in tourism, it helps you to get more information from the places that you're visiting, and also to have navigation turn by turn where in the cities that you are going. Probably one of the most important fields for augmented reality is gaming. It takes the experience to a whole new level since you can add virtual objects to the real world and interact with them. You can also do that on the street, and people will probably look a bit weird at you, but it doesn't matter that much as long as you're having fun. And then in the healthcare industry, it can help you maybe to teach you how to give first aid to someone in need, and operations like that. So looking forward, looking into the future, what would be the next steps? Well, as we saw today, most of the AR apps were used on our phones, so we have to point our phone around in order to see them. But probably something that would take things to the next level would be augmented reality glasses, which would make the experience much more natural, and you'll have everything on your lens without having to point the phone around. And then if that becomes normal, then mixed reality is probably the next step, where it becomes natural for human to have a mix of the real world and the virtual objects that are overlapping the world. So it looks science fiction, but I think it's not that far. And yeah, if you want to read more about this, you can check some theoretical aspects on g2.com. Then you can see on auriloops.com you have articles for each version of the AR kit and what was added with each new version. If you want to try some projects yourself, you can start from developer.apple.com, download their starter projects and start from there, and you'll see how you can change and work with them. And if you want to see some more complex apps, you can check Awesome AR Kit on GitHub. They have a lot of projects there, and some of them are really complex, like mapping the solar system and things like that. So it's a very cool collection of augmented reality projects. Last but not least, if you want to read more about the LiDAR capabilities of devices and see what apps are out there already, you can check the article from Mickey's workshop and read about that. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.